What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Lava Lamp Podcast. It is your host, Ryan Motter, and join with me as always, we have the man, Jay Brand, and we have the man, Sava Lava, and we got some interesting things to go over this week. And without further ado, if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to stay tuned for future uploads. And if you haven't checked out the other episodes, go show them some love too. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it.
Feeling spicy.
Let's get it.
Feeling spicy.
Dolly, you want to start us off, brother?
If you want me to. So
Go
my
ahead.
little thing I had for us this week, we can pull up like an article if we want to, or like a little thing on Google about it. But
You got that laptop if you want.
Well, yeah, but it won't show up on there. Like for the
We'll
viewers.
we'll
to
do
see.
it. We'll do it post edit.
Okay. Well, basically, my little thing is about the 13th Amendment. So, for those of you that are a little familiar with it, you probably know the thing that it's glorified for, which is the abolition of slavery, right? But
Hold on. We gotta circle back real quick. I'm sorry, bro. I totally forgot. We gotta do the beer of the week.
Beer of the week.
It's the beer of the week. Kick it off, Jay Brand.
So I totally didn't open this already, but this
No,
is
you didn't. You didn't. Go ahead.
Goose Island Beer Co.
No, go ahead. Crack it open. You didn't crack it yet.
Yeah. So that was no special effects. I opened this one right away. And this is a big juicy beer hug. Again, Goose Island Beer Co.
Beer
Not too
hug.
bad. Kind of has a different taste, kind of fruit.
I think it's beer hug.
Beer.
Oh, it is beer hug.
Big juicy beer hug, but it's got a cool bear with the shades on there.
Let Dolly go ahead and get his crispy.
Get a good crack there. Let's see what you got.
Do it up in the mic. Do it up in the mic.
Oh. What about listen to
That
this
splash was
right
great.
here?
Ooh. A little ASMR for y'all.
Oh. I mean, it's
Okay.
got a little fruit to it.
It does. I can't tell what fruit it is though.
What would we'll be talking Cygnet Coins here out of 5. Remember, I'm
So-
harsh with mine.
Right.
So-
So
Give
I
it like a
mean,
good breakdown too of why your
So-
like what your choices are for and shit.
I can't remember what I did on the last one, but this one I would say, because I like IPAs, mine's going to be a little biased.
Okay.
Now, if this was a Voodoo Ranger, I'd probably be giving it a 5 out of 5.
It's a good one.
I can't pinpoint what this fruit is or what this is supposed to be, because it's like, I'm not saying it's bad, but like the fruit flavor's a little weird to me, but the
Different.
IPA is good. Like I can tell that the beer in it is good. So I would say I'm going to give it like probably a 3.8 out of 5 Cygnet Coins,
Okay.
just because it's an IPA. It's just
I'll
it's
go-
a beer hug.
I'll go next. So I actually have a Sodies of the week. I'm actually not going to be participating. So we got ourselves
Sober
here.
Sally over here.
We got.
Yeah.
Wait, what is it?
I said Sober Sally over here.
I guess so. Yeah.
Oh, I got my pop, guys.
Anyway, we got ourselves a little Coca-Cola.
Oh, a little tried and true.
Yeah, a little tried and true.
You can clean chrome with it.
What's that?
Coca-Cola, like
Oh, like
Chrome
you can
car
actually
parts?
clean. Oh shit.
you can clean like almost anything in your house with Coca-Cola.
That's pretty cool.
Damn, really?
Yep. You should look up. There's like thousands of recipes you can make with just a can of Coca-Cola and other things.
Wow.
But for me, back to the big juicy beer.
Wait,
hug.
I didn't give it my Cygnet Coins.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll
Go
just
ahead.
be real quick. Y'all know the drill. It's a Coca-Cola. 4.2 Cygnet Coins.
Ooh.
Call them up.
I have to ask real quick before Jordan does his little rating. Is there a soda that's out there that you would say, Saba, that in your brain gets a 5 out of 5 Cygnet Coins?
Baja Blast.
Yeah, honestly, now that I think about it, I should have known that would have been the answer, but no, that makes sense, yeah.
Set that up.
I mean, dude.
Set 'em up. You
I
know
had
it's a
one today.
Baja
No, let me-
I had a
Blaster.
Baja Blast today.
Okay. Before you get into that, let me just tell you something real quick about Baja Blast. So it was actually like engineered with like tests, with people like volunteering to test basically like what soda would taste best with a taco. So like there was like a lot of trial and error that happened for Baja Blast to become a thing, bro. And like that's why it's so popular with Taco Bell, because it tastes the best with tacos, bro.
Interesting.
Isn't that weird? All right, go ahead with your
For
Cygnet
my
coins.
big juicy beer hug, I'm gonna give it 2.3.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say the flavor lacks a little bit on the aftertaste.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of good at first, but like Dala
Right.
was saying,
It's
the
like
fruit's
whatever
kind
that
of like
fruit is.
yeah, it's kind of indescribable, and it's almost leading me to think that it's like grapefruit. And if grapefruit's used in
It has
too
like that
much,
bitter taste
if
to
it's
it.
used too much, it might be what we're tasting there. But I will say for 9.9%, I will give it that like little asterisk factor where I feel like when the beer is that strong, it's kind of tough to not have a little
Like sacrifice
like
on
lack of
flavor.
Yeah, because it's like a can of wine,
Yeah.
literally.
So you
Percentage-wise.
said, what did you say? 2.8?
2.1.
2.1. Oh, wow.
2.1, yeah. Which is good for me.
Yeah.
I'm very like stern on mine. For it to be 3s, 4s to 5, we're talking
Right.
like great beer for me. Good beer right here. Not on my greatest.
What you doing, Betty?
I was trying to see if anywhere on the can, if it said like what the ingredients were, but it doesn't. So I wasn't sure. I was trying to see if maybe we could see what that mystery fruit is.
I will
I'm
say,
pretty sure it's
though,
supposed to tell you what the ingredients
brand-
It
are.
probably
though-
does on the box that like whatever the beers came in, but
Oh.
on the actual cans they don't have like a nutritional facts type shit like it would
Gotcha.
on the box.
I will say though, the brand of this beer is very good. I like Goose Island. They make a lot of different IPAs and pale ales and
Oh, yeah.
ales and
Shouts out the Cygnet to the world,
Yeah.
Goose Island.
pale ale.
I don't really drink much, so like when I do drink, it's like I don't mind drinking. I just don't really care to partake in it that often.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a big drinker myself either, and it maybe has something to do with like my childhood, like what I grew up with. But in socials, I'd say I'm a social drinker. You know, like when like especially like the podcast, it's nice to like it's something I look forward to, getting to hang out, do the podcast, and like hang out with the boys and you know, drink a little brewskis, you know. But like on the weekends, I'm not typically buying myself. Like I don't really drink alone. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of boring.
Yeah.
And kind of lame. But I mean, I'm not saying like there's anything wrong for the people that do. I mean, if that's your thing, like do your thing. Everybody's got their vices of the world,
Yeah.
you know. So,
Yep.
You want to drink tequila?
but
in
like
your
I think
underwear?
that, like I'm not saying it was designed for it, but I think that alcohol definitely in a social setting is like why so many people party with alcohol, because it
Yeah.
makes you loose. It like makes you just have kind of more fun, but also when you overdo it, you know, you're not gonna have fun in the morning when you're puking and shit.
True.
You know, so
To what you were saying, I feel like people get into it at first because my phrase for that is I call it social lubricant, where it's like some people that are like maybe anxious or like aren't themselves in a crowd after a drink or two, they really kind of
Become
like
more-
the fourth or fifth wall is broken now, and it's like
Yep.
they feel like they're at home
for sure.
a little bit more, like that you getting loose on the juice.
Right. Like
You know?
I've even had like so like every year I've been now at my job for like 3 years, but my manager that I have currently, he's only been there for 2 years. And there's 2 years now where we've gone out like Christmas time, around that time we'll go out to like Benny's, me and him and his wife, and we'll get some pizza and have a couple beers.
Yeah.
And like, you know, me and Chuck are cool, like we'll talk like at work and stuff. But like when, you know, it starts throwing some beers, it's like I become more like natural, and it's like I just like, all right, watch yourself, Siggy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is still your boss now.
This is a workplace
This ain't your homie.
Yeah. Work function.
Damn.
He faded.
Anyway, so let's go on to the first thing. I guess
Yeah, we kind of really
I know
went
that
in on that.
that was my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can just cut that part where I started to talk about it and just go into like beer of the week and then come back to this, you know. I'm going to look up real quick just so I can read out in full what it says.
We'll be right back.
Being on that big juicy beer hug, though. Thank God for the velo. Keeping it high, getting that low, getting that V-low.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting that hot, getting that low. I don't know, but I got rocking that below. Yeah. Sorry, don't try to be a fucking hero. Yeah. Don't try to find me like my name's Nemo. Because you know that we gonna get this shit. We gonna get those pesos. No, those pesos. You know that we gonna play with that shit like it's Play-Doh. What you talking about, homie? You don't even really wanna know me. I don't really know, but you looking real fake like you a stack of baloney.
Yo, no, I don't play though. Got a war named Credo.
All right, hold on.
So the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except, a lot of people don't know this, except as a punishment for a crime. Basically saying that if the person's been convicted for a crime, then technically, according to the Constitution, they can be turned into a slave, essentially.
Damn.
And when you think about some prisons who essentially force their people to work, some of these people don't have a choice. Like, there was a video I'd watched a day or two ago where a YouTuber went and he was interviewing some, like, prisons and stuff, and, like, this one, it was like a woman's prison, but this lady who I think was like working there, like ran it, she used to be a prisoner. And she was talking about how, like, in Texas, like, they don't have a choice. Like, you are basically forced to go work out in the plantation because you're a prisoner. And if you don't, like, you know, you can get in trouble, essentially.
Damn.
And they'd say that, like, the guards would be out there on a horseback with a gun, like armed guards, like watching you work on this plantation. And they'd talk about in Texas, like, sometimes based on the heat, it can get up to like 100 some degrees out there. And you're already in a prison where there's no air conditioning.
Right.
So you're already like hot and like dehydrated probably. And I mean that's terrible. But and like there's levels to it with crime, you know? So like
Right.
there's levels of offenders. So technically you could do something that's not really that bad, but if you're convicted of the crime, according to this, like you technically could still be forced to go do that kind of labor. And, you know, it's just like, it's interesting because I never really knew that or thought about that. And I don't think that they really mention that, because when people mention the 13th Amendment, it's like glorified because it was the abolishment of slavery, but they don't throw in that catch, you know? And it almost makes you wonder if, like, if America technically did not abolish slavery, they just rebranded it.
Right.
And named it prison.
I mean, a lot of people argue that.
Right?
You know, there's a lot of people in the hip hop community that have been making music about that certain predicament. I mean, even System of a Down had a song called the Prison Song, and it basically speaks on how, like, our prison system is like a business now, and like a lot of the drug like activity is like a way for like the CIA or agencies to like fund overseas operations.
Damn.
So I mean, you got to wonder. I mean, drugs, I mean, they had the war on drugs, right? And it's like drugs are like the number one thing that's taking people out, right, outside of like, you know, your diabetes and like heart stuff. But it's like ODs, I mean, are pretty prevalent.
Yeah.
Even in prisons, people have access to drugs. Like, people, they'll be slinging drugs in prison, you know, and it's like, that just makes you wonder. There's got to be like a middleman somewhere. Like, you always see in like shows, like, there's a corrupt guard that's like working with one of the prisoners, or like, you know, they're in cahoots with them, they're getting paid. Like, I'm sure there's shit like that going on in actual prisons, you know, like there's stuff going under the table because there's a guard that knows about it, but he's staying hush hush, you know, because he's getting some kind of kickback from what's happening.
Probably not getting paid that much to begin with,
right?
You know, making basic living now with that inflation.
Yeah.
So that would be a tough job, you know, especially depending on where you're at, depending on what the prison is, you know, like to deal with that on a daily basis, and you're getting paid, you know, like not minimum wage, but you're not making like a grand living, so to say, unless you're like a a sheriff or like the warden or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unless you could be someone who's there like to make a positive impact in those people, that would be tough because not only are you dealing with like crap,
right,
being the guard, but then it's like, man, that's got to be negative energy.
Oh, for
the amount of people that
so much.
that are, they got to be depressed. I mean, they're
Right.
locked in a box, whether they deserve to be or not. I mean, that takes a toll on a human being.
You know, when you put it like that, Jordan, that almost like it kind of humbles me in a way that like it kind of makes me see it from a different side. That like that's probably why some of these cops you come across are dickheads.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've been on the force for so long and they've been dealing with so much bullshit.
Oh yeah,
They're on edge about everything. You know, they can't really take a joke serious because they don't know what somebody's actual intention is. You know what I mean? They're always overthinking what's going to actually happen. You know, that would be a rough life to live, low-key.
I think, yeah, that's probably a good topic in itself, is to do that job and to do it well, and like to be a police officer or something like that. It's
Right.
like, that's a real like hero. You know what I
For
mean?
real.
When you think about it, like a guard that's actually in there, and say that guard becomes a friend with a prisoner and they get out and they do better because this guard treated them nice.
Right.
While they were, you know, maybe treated like an animal because they're locked up. I mean, you know, some people just make a bad choice at a bad time,
For
and then they really pay for it.
And then there's also people that get wrongly convicted of crimes
True.
and have to serve these sentences, and they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
That's wild.
You
There's
know?
people all the time, DNA will be
Right.
like, yeah, this dude is in prison for 19 years. Sorry.
I remember one story.
Like,
that
that's
was when I was
crazy.
like, I was probably in school still. I remember hearing it on the news. Some guy had been in prison for like 30 years, and he didn't do it. And they came back and found he didn't do it, and he ended up getting paid some money. But it's like in the end, like that doesn't make up for lost time, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And not to mention, I mean, say you have like a kid and they think you did something heinous. So for 30 years, they're like, yeah, my dad's a bad person and I don't go
Right.
see him. And then they have to, that messes up that family, because
That's
then they're
crazy.
like, wow, we didn't believe dad or whatever. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And like the mom and the uncle and everybody who was shamed that like thought he did something
Right.
wrong.
Because you know, too, like the mom and like the uncle are probably spitting a bunch of shit into these kids' ears. Like,
After a while. you
right.
know?
Because they start to believe it themselves and they're like, oh, yeah, well, he probably did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they start bringing up shit that the kids don't even know about. I remember that time he did this fucked up thing.
Yep.
It's like, don't paint a bad light for the kids of what their father is, especially when you don't really know what happened, you know?
Yeah.
But it is sad that that kind of shit does happen and it gets swept under the rug, essentially. Some of the shit doesn't even get mentioned. There's people on a daily basis, I think about this a lot, that like, there's people from like my hometown that have like died or like committed suicide or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get like the kind of recognition that some of these stories get on like
Yeah.
a big level, you know what I mean? But like every once in a while you'll hear a story about, you know, somebody, you know, got murdered and then they make a Netflix documentary out of it and stuff. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like, what makes them so special that they get this whole documentary, but everybody else that like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's like a pick and choose type of thing. And it's,
That there's like maybe because they found the person, so there's
Right.
the mystery. Because that's the one thing. Like my one of my brother's good friends, he was I think Franklin County police of some sort. I mean, I don't know what he did specifically, and I don't want to get that specific with it. But it was like he did something one time where he was working with like a crime task force, and he was like, the problem that most people don't understand, like when it's not like what you would call like an obvious crime, where it's like, you know, domestic dispute and like now the husband's gone and his cell phone's off, and it's like, well, there's your, you know, suspect prime one. When it's like a random event where it's not a close person or a person of interest, there's really nothing to go off of.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they have them on a cell phone or like a Ring camera or something of that nature. I mean, that's why like your Bundys and those type of people, they were doing what they were doing back in a non-digital age, but they were doing it to random people.
Right.
So it's really hard for the police to put a picture together of like a random person.
Yeah.
because there's no motive.
Where's the motive at? Because
Right.
if they're going after like the jealous ex-boyfriend and he has a complete alibi that checks out and doesn't have a motive, where's the police really going to go from
Exactly.
there? If there's no major evidence, and they don't say if it's a real small town and they don't even really have like a great crime lab or anybody specialized, it'll probably eventually go to FBI after a certain time, and maybe they'll solve it on a cold case. But if you look up the amount of cold cases, it's wild, the amount of ones that aren't solved. So it's like,
for sure.
and some of them, there's nothing even to go off of. It's just person's going and they were found in a river 10 years later, and
sometimes the body's not.
Yeah,
never shows up either.
Yeah, you can't find nothing. So what do you know? And I mean, I think that's the worst because the family deserves closure.
For sure.
Right.
But yeah, there's some crazy people out there. So you always gotta be safe. Lock your doors and go with friends if you go somewhere. Tell somebody where you're going.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah, doll, you need to start telling me where you're going, bro.
You know, shoot a text to your homies. There's nothing weird about saying, "Hey, on my way." Hey. Walking up, because you know what I mean? If someone texts you walking up and then you don't hear from them for 20 minutes, I mean, you'll go looking.
Right.
So stuff like that helps. It's a paper trail.
Yeah, true. Got an alibi.
I had
that
something
too.
and I forget.
Cover your own butt and some crazy allegation.
I had something, but I forget where I was going with it.
Wow, dude. You know what? I'm done.
Yep. He's out.
You forgot.
Sorry, brother.
I was trying to hit the sound. Okay. Welcome back to the Lava Lab.
To the Lava Lamp Podcast.
Oh. For the hand.
All right, guys. So I've been.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry.
You know what? I'm done.
I can save it, but like I can save it, but like going back to like
give me one of them Cokes.
To what Brotherman was saying about like there's no motive, right? With like that shit. It makes you think about like obviously in most cases you would say if you
I asked for it.
If you commit murder, that's fucked up, right?
Yeah.
But there's some cases where like self-defense, if you have no choice, you know what I mean? Or like you're in the military, you know what I mean? That's a different kind of level of it, right? And then there's people like that we just mentioned that kill random people without a motive. That's a different level of insanity, bro.
True.
Like when you really think about it, like there's people that like may have a motive and then it's like, okay, well I can kind of see like, but it's like, you're not condoning it, but it's like, at least you understand why this person did what they did. But it's like with that, where it's just like, they pick somebody at random and it's like, okay, I'm going for them.
Well, but then at that point, that becomes their motive. You know what I mean? Like, so there always is a motive.
Like there's a reason, right? But like, an actual motive for like you had a reason to commit this act. There's not really that level at play when you're talking about somebody like a murderer that just picks a random target and goes for him. Whereas like there's a reason that like so and so, because his wife cheated on him, he went and killed. You know what I mean? So like there was a reason behind that. Whereas like you had no actual reason. You just, because you wanted to kill something. That's like your reason, I guess.
Their reason is because it would release like serotonin in their brain. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. It would hopefully like give them that fix that they're looking for. That's their motive. You know what I mean? Right, so like at the end of the day, there's always a motive.
So get this. True. My take on serial killers is that everyone has the capability to like full scale snap. I believe the youth these days will say crash out.
Yeah.
So, say a normal person, average intelligence crashes out. What do? They freak out in their job or they go postal, the people say. But say like a genius, like evil genius level person, their crash out is a serial killer. Because they can figure out how to keep doing it. They just get consumed in it to where they get this like, most of them all hit a level where they thought they could get away with it forever, where like they would get sloppy even.
Because of probably in that case, because you're a serial killer, which means you've done it multiple times, after the first couple of times of not getting caught, that's where that mindset comes in. Like, I'm not going to get caught. They can't catch me. whatever
Well,
I'm doing is working. You know what I mean?
Dahmer was like thinking he was a god, like he was doing devil worship and stuff. Like he got real weird. I mean, some of his stuff, like you probably couldn't even like really go over on a podcast on like
for
public
real.
forum because he was doing weird stuff. And I don't want to get too far into it, but the thing about me when I watched it, the most daunting thing about it was a lot of those deaths were preventable.
Yeah.
Like they ignored that lady next door forever, bro.
Yeah.
Like she was calling him, and at one point was like, I think he's sawing a dude up. And they were like, well, if it's not an active situation or something, you could hear be like, I don't know what's more active than someone screaming help in a saw sound. Like,
Right. Not to mention, like, I think that was the one they did like a documentary on it, or like that Evan dude played the role of him.
did great.
Right, he did do a great job. You know, the one guy that escaped, like the first victim, the guy that like I don't want to say he was a gay dude, but that's why they were there.
I mean, they all were.
Yeah,
Right.
all of his victims were gay.
Right. So like he was there to like hang out
He was
with
gay
him.
himself.
Right.
Yeah.
But he didn't realize what was actually going to happen. But
True.
like kudos to him for getting away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's sad that like other people couldn't realize, because he probably got smarter with what his tactics were, because once that happened, he probably realized, okay, something I did not spooked him or freaked him out. You know what I mean? And that's fucked up in the sense that
Made him better.
Right, our conscience is a thing that like we want to constantly improve, regardless of what our intention is or our action is. So people, even with evil mindsets,
Yep.
you know, they can continue to grow and intellectually and use that power for evil. You know, and that's why I used to think that knowledge is power, but I've learned that knowledge applied is power. But that goes for both sides of the ball game, because, you know, I do believe in balance in a sense. I believe that there is good and evil in the world. So, you know, some evil genius, you know, has the power to do some pretty twisted things. And, you know, people that like are doctors that are doing evil shit like that, that's some like real evil shit, bro, because you dedicated like a large portion of your life to get this education to be a doctor, which means you had to get a doctorate. And then you use that power to do twisted shit. Like, remember that doctor that in Columbus, it was like a couple years ago, they found that he was like secretly killing all these patients.
Yes, yes. He killed like 50 people, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, bro. Wild. Like, that's fucked up. That's wild, though, that, like, you know, technically something that dude did for his whole life, he avoided detection of his actual, like, crazy fucking intentions. And that's scary to think that, like, people can hold that shit in for so long and then just at a snap of a button just go haywire. Dude.
Crash out.
Crash out, dude.
Crash out.
That's wild.
I mean, speaking of which, though, this is totally unrelated, though, but a big crash out happened in Russia. And I mean, it's called Chernobyl.
Oh,
yeah, and I mean, you know,
them cherries.
Yeah, dude, the Russians put that big ass bomb inside the Tsar bomb, but inside the mines and blew it up. Now we got cherries.
that's where they all came from?
Chernobyl, look it up.
Hey, Alexis.
Yeah. Allegra.
I'm just trying to figure out which cherry's the most noble, dude.
You ever seen that SNL skit where they're talking about the golden era Alexa, and it's for old people, and it's just like made for like elderly, and it'll just answer to any name, and like it listens to their stories and agrees with them and things. And one of them has, I can't remember the girl's name, and she's always like, Allegra, what them boys doing? And Alexa will chime in and be like, the boys are outside playing. She'll be like, I don't know about that. Everything that like Alexa says, I don't know about that.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was a great skit.
Isn't it wild too, though? Like, as you get older, like, I wouldn't say like I'm like this, but like there are times where I'll be like, I'll see kids doing some stupid shit, and I'll just be like, you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
But I'll be like, at the same time, I'll think, dude, that was me like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like you can't judge them for not having the life experience you got. You know what I mean?
There's some little, speaking of fucking kids being kids, I can't remember. I was getting something. I had to go to Dublin. Can't remember what store it was. But anyways, I'm walking out and there's like all these little troublemaking ass teenager ace kids and they're behind me. And I keep hearing fucking, yeah, I see you, cutie with the long hair. And I was like, they're gonna be hollering at a chick. And he was like, I see you, cutie with the long hair, walking, whatever. It said like whatever my pants were or something like that. And I'm like, these kids are hollering at me. I'm like, what the hell? And I turn around and like the smallest one in the group rolls up and he opens a huge bag and he goes, you want some candy? And he had all this dope candy and I was like, all right. And he was like, yeah, you want some candy? And I like took a couple pieces and he was just like, have a good day. And like they went off like roughhousing in a Walmart parking lot and I was like, damn. Kids are kind of getting better. Like they were like roughhousing, but he was like making everybody's day with candy. He was like walking up to other people, giving them like they went inside and bought candy.
Okay, that's cool. But
Yeah.
Dude, I'm like,
the concept of it,
have
like,
a nice day.
just like the thought in my head of some kid coming up to you and being like, hey, you want some candy? And it's like, that's like rings in my head of like a stranger in a van, like, you want some candy, kids?
Yeah.
It's like,
I was already like, how's this gonna go? And I turned around and he had like just the biggest smile and with the bag open and candy. He was like, you want candy? And I'm just like, not how I thought this was going. Yeah, I'll take that Reese's Pieces.
I'll take a piece of candy.
Yeah, and a Starburst or whatever it was.
Oh, Starburst is
Yeah,
nice.
so I was like, okay.
The pink Starbursts. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, dude.
Oh,
they
yeah.
have like
Flavor
packaging
Reds.
just for the pink ones.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
the
do,
Flavor
yeah.
Reds is just the dark red and pink. Shout out Flavor Reds, send us a bag. Starburst.
Hey, Starburst.
Yeah. You know you can toast them like a marshmallow. Flavor gets a little bit more intense. Yep, I've done it many a times.
Wow.
Another hack is you don't have to buy like graham crackers, chocolate, and marshmallow. Just buy the I think it's like the Keebler. Not sure what it is, like fudge round or something like that.
Oh, the cookies, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like the graham cracker with the chocolate on it. You just put a fucking cooked marshmallow in between it. You already got your graham cracker and your chocolate.
Yummy.
That's actually that's good.
Yeah, dude, that's clever.
That was really good.
Follow me, boy.
He's gonna run.
No.
No.
No, he's just gonna do a Starburst.
Yeah, I was gonna do a Starburst thing, dude. I didn't know we got Starburst.
I didn't know he was gonna burst.
Yeah. I didn't know we was all bursting.
You guys are bursting over there?
Oh, dude, I've bursted twice.
Burst alert.
On
Burst
this
alert.
big juicy beer hug.
In that
Shout out
Lava Labs
Red Hood.
koozie,
Yeah.
though?
Shout out Lava Labs.
Shout out Lava Labs. Hey, for anybody that wants
Labs
to,
of Lava. Oh, taking over.
just so y'all
Lucky
know,
wiener.
y'all can microdose at lavalabs.com.
Yeah, shout out
Probably not, but
yeah, shout out sponsor Lava Labs.
I mean,
They be sending us great stuff. They be making stuff for all these people out here. Hit them up, www.lavalabs.com.
what was it again?
www.lavalabs.com. That's with a Z, as in zebra. Lava Labs.
Oh yeah.
So my only other thing that I had on my mind is there's a Soviet craft falling back to Earth.
Oh.
And it was meant to go to Venus, which they say is Earth's sister, because at one point Venus, I think like in size it's kind of similar, might be a little bit bigger, but it had like an atmosphere closer to ours, but now it's like wild, where it's like the longest a rover's lived on, it's like 30 minutes.
I was about to say their atmosphere is pretty intense right now.
So that's kind of part of like the warning of this is like, I guess the craft anybody over the world watching this, they say if it comes back to Earth, like, don't touch it.
Wow.
Like, don't touch it, don't mess with it, because it might have radiation or major leakage in the craft because it's been in space, for, I believe it was in the 70s is when it was sent up there. So it's probably been in space, busting around, going...
Sponge me, boy.
Going mock SpongeBob for about mock Squidward. So, I mean, that's like 60-some years. It's been in space and coming back. So, I mean, who knows what could be on that thing,
That's
bacteria-wise or radiation-wise. So, heed the warning if you see a Soviet craft hit your ground or something. Because it's thankfully probably going to hit water.
Yeah.
But if it hits your backyard, don't mess with it because it might fall in the U.S., Canada, or Europe, I believe.
Damn.
Yep.
Guilty.
Yeah. What if it falls back here?
In the backyard?
I'm telling you right now, Putin, I'm not giving that up without a fee, dog. All right, because rent be up over here.
We taking pics. I'm sorry.
So if I gotta store that in my backyard, bro, I'm gonna be real. That's a solid 1,000 Cygnet coins a week, right?
Oh no, dude, that's like
A day.
yeah.
1,000 Cyggies a day.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, dude, make sure you know where it's going.
We're gonna make the
Yeah.
Cygnet coin the new
Yeah.
currency.
Oh, dude, that's not a bad idea.
We should actually
start a
create
meme
one.
coin.
We should create a Cygnet coin.
What do you? Hey, let us know. Would y'all be cool with a Cygnet meme coin or like a Lava Labs coin or a Lava Lamp coin, something like that?
And
I don't
let
know
us
if it's a good idea.
Let us know.
No?
Would you guys prefer the coin to have a swan on the coin, or would you prefer it to have or tails would be the swan and heads would be Ziggy? You know,
About Sonic the Hedgehog.
I like Sonic.
Yeah.
But
You
he's
like
not a
chili
Cygnet.
dogs. I like chili dog. We have a lot in common. Hit me up,
Wow,
Sonic.
buddy. You know how to work the camera.
I'm just gonna say Tails was cool though.
Tails was
You know
cool,
what I mean,
You
dude?
know what? Tails
Being
was
able to just
cool. Facts.
with
And
his
you
twin
know,
tail, he's like a fox, bro.
There
That's
was
tight.
this game I had on Xbox. I think it was Xbox 360. It was a Sonic game, right? But there was this new dude they introduced. He was like a white hedgehog.
Hmm.
I forget his name, but he was kind of cool too.
You know, this just came to me since like you're like our resident Dragon Ball Z guru here.
Yeah.
I always would like to know, like, because Sonic goes supersonic, and his hedgehog looks kind of like Goku's hair, but instead of going up, it goes back, and he gets all white and godlike and gets his powers.
I wonder if that's like an homage
Who
to
came
Dragon
first?
Ball because of the fact that like Sega is a Japanese company.
Yeah.
And Dragon Ball Z, I'm pretty sure, was created by a Japanese man. And so that could be like an homage to him. You know what I mean?
That'd be
like,
a cool research topic.
For sure. That would be pretty cool to look into.
Because Sonic is old.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Dragon Ball feels
It's also
older.
kind of old, too. Like, it was
Yeah.
it was in, like, the 90s. And, like, Dragon Ball itself, like, when you're talking about Little Goku,
Yeah.
that was probably, like, 96 maybe, if not before that. Actually, Dragon Ball Z, I think, was 96. So maybe that was before that. So,
Like the 80s.
yeah, I don't know exactly.
It
but
looked
I actually
old,
kinda
dude.
want to look it
Yeah.
up.
Look that one up for a quick sec. I mean, I think there's like crazy similarities
Yeah.
because they both get like
Yeah,
the
bro.
blondish, whitish like hue because they both are godlike when they go to those modes.
Dragon Ball came out in 1986.
So when did the first Sonic? Because Sonic is like Sega Genesis, so it's going to be real close.
Sonic, it says, came out in 1991. So after.
Ooh, so then yeah, they were kind of either
It could
ripping
have
off
been,
or
it was, I don't know. It's interesting because, like I said, the Super Saiyan shit didn't come until Dragon Ball Z, right? Which
Okay.
Dragon Ball Z,
getting deep.
I'm pretty sure it came out in 96. It did, 1996. Yep. Actually, no. Dragon Ball Z was first released in 1989, running for 291 episodes before wrapping up in 1996. So it ended in 1996.
Okay. So it's very similar timeline then.
Very similar.
So maybe they were kind of like, or maybe if we look into it, maybe there was an illustrator of some sort who did work on both.
Both. That would make sense too.
Yeah.
You know?
And so that's where the kind of the idea would have came from.
Or maybe y'all are just thinking too much about it.
Maybe I've had too
bro.
much big juicy beer hug.
No, I don't think so, bro. There's a reason for
They
everything.
they seem very similar. I mean, the Chaos Emeralds though, that's the difference in the power up, but they both basically go God mode.
Chaos
True.
Emeralds.
Yep.
Emerald Tablet.
The Philosopher's Stone.
Jared from Subway.
Wait, I didn't know we were talking about Jared.
Yeah.
I think he gets out this year, dude.
Subway's kind of. I'm not sure, dude. That's Jersey Mike's if I'm getting a sandwich.
Jersey Mike's. But at the same time, like my mindset with Jersey Mike's. No, never mind. I'm thinking of Jimmy John's.
Yeah, a little different.
Jersey Mike's definitely is a banger. Jimmy John's.
Jimmy John.
They're not bad.
I wouldn't
but
say
the thing is, they're not bad. But like
I'm
the
not.
thing is,
I'm not
like,
a fan of cold sandwiches.
Well,
like
my
that.
thing is, if I'm gonna make a cold sandwich, I'll do that shit at home.
True.
You know what I mean? I'll just get the fucking shit myself, and then I can put chips on it and
For
whatever
me,
I want.
I think their bread's good. Jimmy
They
John's
do
got
have
that
good bread. They do got good bread. I ain't gonna lie.
They're cooking.
Cook.
But what's nice about Jersey Mike's is they can toast it.
Jersey Mike's is you get that rosemary parm.
I do not. I usually
Oh,
get like
dude.
a chicken bacon.
Go in there next time, get you a big Kahuna Philly, get everything they put on that muff, and get that rosemary parm bread. And come back and be like, thanks, dude.
I'm like, you showed me the way.
The first time, what I always like to do when I go to a place and like I'm not hip to it or I'm on the fence, I literally just look at somebody and be like, what would you make to eat for lunch? And it's like, I'm easy to please when it comes to food, so as long as you don't put black licorice on it, we're cool.
Yeah.
So
that is sauerkraut. You put sauerkraut on my
I'll
shit.
fuck up some kraut.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan
I'm not a
huge fan of
cracker.
sauerkraut either.
I'll pile that on my shiz.
He gets some sauerkraut. He's like,
I'm getting real sour.
Crowdy.
I'm about to crown.
That was the German put down in the war. World War II.
shouts out.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I might have some. I'm not entirely sure on this, but I'm pretty sure. But I'm not 100%. I might have some kind of relation to like some kind of German ancestry, but I'm pretty
No, you
sure it's
don't.
mostly like Irish.
What are you, a cop?
Mata, we're the Mata mans, dude. You know what it is. Maka.
mucker.
I think we got a banger right here. Got a
Yeah.
banger.
You do have a banger,
Well,
Loki.
yeah.
Low key banger.
And that's the will, and that's the way, y'all. We appreciate y'all for tuning in for another electric episode of the Lava Land Podcast. If you guys enjoy the content, make sure to hit the like button. Subscribe to stay tuned for the future uploads. And if you haven't already, make sure to go check out the other episodes. Show them some love. Leave a comment. Let us know what you guys are thinking. And if you guys want to see more, you know where to find us. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Bye.